Hi, y'all, and welcome to a pop-up live stream. I just had to go live to talk to you about what has just happened in the Bryan Kohberger case. He was sentenced today in an absolutely stunning end to a case that began on November 13th, 2022, when four college students were murdered in their own home in the middle of the night, some of them in their own beds. And we finally have an admission from the defendant about who did it, and now he has been sentenced today. And what was so dramatic and emotional about today from the families was countered by something entirely different from the defendant. We are going to be talking about that today. I'm going to show you some clips from what happened. We're going to talk about the difference between the families and Bryan Kohberger. As you know, he has been now convicted and sentenced. He pled guilty and has been sentenced to murdering four college students: Kaylee Goncalves, Maddie Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. He has fought tooth and nail since he was arrested in the beginning of January of 2023, a couple of months after the murders. He has fought tooth and nail. He has declared he is innocent, and his lawyers have filed every possible motion known to lawyer kind over this period of time. They have fought on every issue related to evidence. They fought on every issue related to witnesses. They have fought over the timing. And finally, about a month ago, they lost their final motions, and it became completely clear that trial was about to happen, that Bryan Kohberger was going to go on trial in August, and that he would be subject to the death penalty if he was convicted. And at that point, the prosecutor told us that a week before he actually pled guilty, for the first time, the defense came to them and the defense said, "What do you think? What do you think about maybe reaching an agreement? What do you think about a plea deal?" If you wouldn't mind, would you hit the like button? That'll help our video go out to more people. I would really appreciate that. And if you are not a subscriber, we'd love to have you. So as far as what he wanted, we didn't get his first proposal. What we do know is what he pled guilty to. He pled guilty to all four murders. He pled guilty to the burglary charge for entering the home. He agreed to waive all appeals, so he will never have an appeal. He can file one, but it would be potentially, as the judge warned him today, a violation of the agreement he reached, which might mean they could still try him again for the death penalty, perhaps this time with the admission that he's actually done it. So it's over. For all practical purposes, it is over for Bryan Kohberger. He has been sentenced, and today the jail doors will slam shut on him the last time. He will be remanded today to the Idaho corrections system. He will be sent to his new prison where he will be kept forever, and there will be no change to that. So I want to take a look at what happened today. I think what was most remarkable about it was not just the emotion from the family, because you might expect that. Not just one family, right? Four. And what was interesting was how differently they approached this sentencing hearing, ranging from a lot of anger to "I forgive you," and a lot of talk about the religious underpinnings that allowed them to forgive him. It was a wide range. All of them were united in absolute belief that what Bryan Kohberger had done was appalling, that it was evil, pure, unadulterated evil. And so we watched them go through that and face Bryan Kohberger and tell him what he had done to their families in different ways. And then, but what did Bryan Kohberger do? Absolutely nothing. He barely moved. He barely flinched. I'm not saying there weren't things you could talk about in terms of body language. You'll see those in just a minute. There'd be like a slight motion. Maybe the mouth would move, a little bit of a wiggle. Other than that, almost nothing. He did not respond. Several times people directly asked him. One of them said, "Sit up before I finish this." And he didn't move. And things like that were addressed directly to him, he never responded to any of those. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He didn't frown. Almost smiled one time. And that was about it. That there was absolutely no emotion. And he chose not to speak. Every prisoner has the right to speak an allocution at their sentencing hearing. He waived that. He chose not to do that. And told the judge, no, I won't be speaking. And the judge went ahead and sentenced him just as had been agreed. 4 sentences for life to be served consecutively. That means if he outlives the first one and comes back for life number 2, he starts over. If he comes back for life number 3, he starts over. Life number 4, he can go through 4 incarnations and he's still going to be in prison. Add 10 years on top of that for the burglary. So he has to make it to his 5th lifetime and wait 10 years before he can get out of prison. That's how long and how permanent this is going to be. So let's take a look at what was said. I'm going to be zipping through these, not zipping through them. I'm going to be pointing some stuff out to you as we go. One of the really fascinating things was we heard from one of the roommates. We heard from 2. And one of the roommates had someone read the statement for her. These were incredibly emotional. The roommates have been harassed for 2 years now with theories that they were involved. And so here was their chance to say something to the world about that, about their loss, about their fear, about what's happened. So let's.
When you murdered my daughter, Kaylee J. Goncalves.
I'm going to start, by the way, is with the Goncalves family. This is Kaylee's family, and this is Kaylee's mother talking about the murder of Kaylee Goncalves, one of the young women who was killed.
You didn't just take her life. You shattered others. You attacked what you could never be, and in doing so, you left a trail of devastation far beyond that house. You stole my peace. You've altered my every waking moment, every sleepless night, the way I view the world, people, safety, trust. It's all been changed by your cruelty. I no longer recognize parts of myself. Joy is harder to find. Laughter feels foreign. The world moves forward, but I'm suspended in a place of sorrow and rage. You've taken from me something that can never be restored. The grief sits with me every day, some days quietly, and other days so loud it drowns out everything else. The emotional toll you've inflicted on me is immeasurable. I live with a constant ache, with birthdays that are now memorials, with holidays that feel hollow, with empty chairs that scream louder than words ever could. I am forever changed. But for you, as a person working on a PhD in criminal justice.
And let me stop there, because up until now, she's talked about the effect on her. And I think that resonates with so many of us, because I think the impact of what he did to these 4 college students has had reverberations for a lot of us. I think that it has had a real impact on the feeling of safety, because what he did was so monstrously horrible. To go into these people's home in the middle of the night, it's just appalling. And so her mother is saying, that's how I felt. That was part of what the experience was like for me. But now she's going to address Bryan Kohberger more directly.
I really didn't think this one through. You're not that good. In fact, you're not that good at anything. You couldn't secure a job. You couldn't get along with others. You couldn't even get a female to look in your direction. All because you are pathetic. Now you're a joke in this courtroom. I wish I could crown you with a jester hat to complete your orange jumpsuit clown look. A dead killer doesn't kill again. So while I'm disappointed the firing squad won't get to take their shots at you, I'm confident that the men in prison will have their way with you in more ways than one. You will finally get what you wanted, physical touch. Just probably not how you were expecting it. See, you haven't beat the system. You've simply entered a new one, where the rules are cruel and the consequences will never end. You are entering a place where no one will care who you are and no one will ever respect you. You will be forgotten, discarded, used, and erased. You will always be remembered as a loser, an absolute failure. And when those prison doors slam shut behind you, I hope that sound echoes in your heart for the rest of your meaningless days. I hope it reminds you of what we all already know. You're nothing. May you continue to live your life in misery. You are officially the property of the state of Idaho, where your fellow inmates are anxiously awaiting your arrival. But it's okay, because they're there to help you. Hell will be waiting. Quick message from our youngest daughter. Aubrey wanted to say, you may have received A's in high school and college, but you're going to be getting big D's in prison.
Thank you.
So it was really surprising to me, even there, no reaction at all. It was several seconds into the next person's talk before he even kind of moved or anything like that. He absolutely no reaction. Now, you can see how the response of the mother was to talk about the negatives for him. One of the very big concerns for the Goncalves family was that there was not going to be a death penalty, and they had wanted that. It is true that what happened to him is a lesser penalty, they feel, I think justifiably so, than their own daughter got. She was murdered. She doesn't get an additional time at life. She doesn't get that, and he does. That's not justice. And so they're looking for what actually could make this fair, what could make this justice for him. And they are pointing to what could happen to him in prison. Personally, I don't think that's the point of our justice system, is to mete out punishment by people being mistreated by other prisoners. But I definitely understand their concern. They want Bryan Kohberger to pay for what has been done, and he needs to pay for what has been done. This is such a horrendous crime, and they're just pointing out in the way they have to do it that what he has done is so appalling that it's not being addressed fully and completely by what is happening today. His going to prison for life still doesn't make up for what happened. And that's just a fact. They're absolutely correct about that. And that's for real. It was a very powerful statement. Some judges might have said something about that or asked for it not to have, asked for no similar comments, asked for no laughter in the courtroom. There was applause several times, and he never said no applause in the courtroom. He really allowed the families, because he knew how critically important this moment in time was. He allowed them to vent and to say what they had to say. This is their last chance, and he wanted to give them that opportunity to say whatever it was that was on their hearts that they felt like would make a difference, that would express the grief and the pain that they feel because of what Bryan Kohberger did. So I thought it was very powerful. We had numerous really powerful statements today. That was more the Goncalves style. I definitely agree with Kevin about Kaylee's sister Olivia. We may not cover that today. I may actually cover that one separately. It was really very powerful, as was the one from her dad, Steve. I thought that was also extremely powerful. So we may cover those separately. Thank you, Kevin, for your super chat. All right, let's take a look and listen to some more. And by the way, I'm going to be asking you at the end sort of what is your read on some of these different styles and the way it went down. I would like your thoughts on that. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do that. That'll really help us. Thanks. All right, so let's now hear from Kaylee's aunt. Let me move this forward just a little bit. I'll add it back to the stage. Okay, see that applause? That happened several times, and he didn't stop it. Now, some judges would have a fit over that. There would absolutely not be applause, but I think he was right. It was measured. It was light. It wasn't as if it was interfering with the court process. And I felt like it was appropriate, but not every judge would have allowed that. That was something unusual that he permitted. All right, I'm going to move this forward because I want you to hear from the aunt. Or not.
And I have one last statement, Your Honor. This is from Cheryl Goncalves, Kaylee's other grandmother.
Oh, grandmother.
John 1:5 says, "Light shines in the darkness, and the darkness overcomes it not." Somewhere in your life, some jealousy, envy, ego, something went dark. It pushed out all light until you became dark and evil. And when you saw my granddaughter and her friends, their light, because they have such a light, you couldn't stand it. Because the darkness in you could not stand the light in them. And so you decided to destroy it. Cowardly, you walked into their rooms in the dark and took their lives, hoping to get rid of your darkness. But you didn't. You failed. Because you know what was once a light shown only to their friends, families, and loved ones is now all over the world. Everyone sees it. Their smile, their beauty, their plans, everything they were and had. And you think you put a close to it, even that, but you didn't. Because they still exist. They are still light. They are still beautiful. You can never take that away. They will always be in the light of all eternity. And you will be in the darkness because you could not overcome it. You failed. I want you to be gone, more than gone. I want you to be cast out. Cast out from my life, from my family, from this earth. I will not allow your hatred to penetrate into my own soul. You did not get that power. You are evil, and in the end, evil is eradicated. You didn't take Kaylee's light, you spread it into the world. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So notice the contrast. Even the attorney reading this is choking up and becoming emotional about this. He's the attorney representing the family, and he's reading their statements, and he's impacted more than Bryan Kohberger. Did you even see him move? It's almost like you have to watch the other squares of the broadcast in order to know whether you're even live, because he is so motionless, so passive. We did hear from the defense before trial ever started, before he pled guilty. They said that he had autism. He had just been diagnosed with autism, and that his reaction, his failure to react, more specifically, his coldness, might be something that the jury would notice, and that would be a problem and could create an unfair trial for him, because he would not be expressive, and the jury would be thinking, why are you not reacting to this? Why are you not at least upset when you hear about what's happened to these poor young people? But in fact, the way it was actually, as it actually worked out, we saw that. We might not have seen it since he didn't have a trial, but we actually saw the way he reacted. And that would have been very similar to how he reacted at trial. And you can certainly see where a jury would be shocked that he would have so little reaction. I am shocked that he had so little reaction to today. Think about what this day means for him. Even if in truth, the day of the murders was the most important day, this is probably the most important day in his life. It is the permanent change for everything in his life. He will never emerge from prison again. He will never have a normal life. There's no hope, no possibility of that changing. And yet, you would think that alone, just the self-interest of it, would create some kind of emotion. It did not. It did not. Just absolutely passive and cold. Really a shocking reaction, I think. All right, let me add another
This courtroom.
video.
I find peace knowing that judgment ultimately belongs to him. For your sake, I hope one day you feel the full weight of what you did.
I'm not able to stop.
I hope you take accountability.
I'm going to pull that out because I'm not able to get it to stop. Give me just a second. I have to remove that one first and add
Truly
the
experience the guilt.
Okay, and I want to move this to about 8.
We're going with everything. It makes things better in my life because that's what it's all about. If I have closure in things, and the part that we miss is Xana, her influence, her smile, the things that she did, and we have the memories left, the great memories, and she just wants us to make more memories and not be sad or upset or shocked or taken for that, you know.
This was probably one of the saddest of them all. This was Xana's dad. And from what he said, apparently he had struggled with addiction during periods of time. And so Xana had largely been raised by other members of the family, but he had remained close to her. And it just seemed like, he said, first off, she was the only child he ever had. And he seemed so lost without her. I was just very moved by what he said.
And that's what we're going to do. We just have to. That's all I got.
Thank you for your words and your courage, and bless your family.
That was so terrible. Right.
From us. You, man, I don't know what my limits are here.
I believe this is Xana's stepdad. I'm not sure who we're hearing, but it was a very intriguing.
But I'm really struggling, dude. I am struggling. So I want to just be out in the woods with you just so I can teach you about loss and pain. I love God. I wouldn't take your life. That's up to him. But I guarantee you are weak. God, I would just give a moment, man, 5 minutes out in the woods. Oh, man. Ooh. You're going to go to hell. I know people believe in other stuff. You're evil. There's no place for you in heaven. You took our children. You are going to suffer, man. I'm shaking because I want to reach out to you, but I hope you feel my energy, okay? Go to hell.
Definitely met with approval in the crowd. And I thought that sort of perfectly encapsulated the contrast between how the families have reacted and how the families are feeling. On the one hand, you can see this incredible anger and how that is dueling with his idea that he has a religious belief that it may not be consistent with, and it's so impossible to resolve. I thought it was so powerful because you could see that very human struggle between recognizing that there is something greater that he should be pursuing, and also that this is so evil that he wants to react to it. He wants to do something about it to protect his child. And who could blame him? All right, let's, I'm going to move it just a little bit. Let me see if I can get it to the right spot. I want it to about 18. Okay. All right, we'll start
Our
there.
Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ,
Xana's mom, by the way.
now has her in his loving arms in heaven, where she can never be harmed ever again for eternity. Because of her, I came to know my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Because of her, many will come to Christ. It is Christ who lives in me that has given me the strength to forgive you. It was of no power of my own. In return, the Lord has filled me with joy, hope, and peace that surpasses all understanding. Jesus has allowed me to forgive you for murdering my daughter without you even being sorry or asking for this. This is only possible because he who lives in me is greater than any evil in this world. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I do not fear you or even let you rent space in my head anymore. This forgiveness has released me from any and all evil you have inflicted on me and my family. It has allowed me to let our Lord deal with you. You have accepted a deal that will prevent you from receiving the death penalty. Nothing man can do to you can ever compare to the wrath of God. Inevitably, you will stand before our Lord and will have to answer to him over the sins you have committed in murdering our children. I pray you come to the end of yourself before that day. Whether you like it or not, heaven is for real and so is hell. The innocent life of Xana that you stole from myself and my family, and the destruction it has caused. I am washing my hands of you and turning you over to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, whom vengeance belongs to.
So notice how she's handling it and how she's dealing with it. She is talking to him about, yes, the evil, yes, the wrong that he did, but she's also saying that we are not the ultimate vengeance or the ultimate justice. There will be perfect justice for you. Don't think you're going to escape that by going to prison for life instead of getting the death penalty. You won't escape that. It will still happen. I still believe that. She's also saying that she forgives him. Now, one of the most interesting talks, was by her aunt. Let me see if I can get to the right spot. I'm trying just a second. Okay, we're going to go back to about number 11.
In closing, I want
Not number 11, minute 11. Okay.
Get my nails done with her, have lunch with her. Sorry. But how I look at it now is this tragedy, this horrible tragedy.
Actually, this is pretty important what she's saying. I want to scoot back. I want to take us back to about minute 10 so you can hear all of what she had to say.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Kim Kernodle. I am Xana's aunt.
Slight
I'm very
motion.
blessed to have her in my life, in our family. And I thought I had everything in my head, what I wanted to say, but it kind of went out. And I'm always looking for the positive thing, because evil, hate can destroy people. And that's what it started doing with our family. It created anger with our family members. And then I had to look, because Xana was everything that the media, her friends said. She was that fun, loving, high-spirited, beautiful person. And I no longer get to get my nails done with her, have lunch with her. Sorry. But how I look at it now is this tragedy, this horrible tragedy on all of the 4 children, has brought us closer. You united us with your actions. We're united now, and we're stronger than ever. We have family and friends now that we never knew we had. And, this is probably going to bother everybody, but Bryan, I'm here today to tell you I have forgiven you, because I no longer could live with that hate in my heart. And for me to become a better person, I have forgiven you. And anytime you want to talk and tell me what happened, get my number. I'm here, no judgment, because I do have answers or questions that I want you to answer. And I'm here. I'll be that one that'll listen to you. Okay? Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
You can watch Bryan.
My name's
I'll
Stratton
give it
Kernodle,
another
and
few
I'm
seconds so
Xana's
you can
uncle,
see, does he react at
Jeff's
all?
brother.
I mean, you see a slight, he barely moves in his seat, just a slight rock. There is no real visible reaction. Now, she's clearly talking to him. She's telling him, I forgive you. I have forgiven you, and I'd like to talk. He doesn't respond. He doesn't, no nod, no reaching out, no nothing, just completely passive as he was at all other times. He did not react. There was no real reaction from him. He said 3 words when he said that he was not going to make a statement, but that's it. Other than that, but at the same time, it did appear to me he was very intently listening to what each and every person said. I don't think he missed a word. He was listening. He was looking at them and intently listening, but it did not seem to be creating any reaction in him. It didn't seem to be creating any kind of tears, sadness, joy. It just, there was nothing. There were slight movements. They're slight, but there was no visible, visceral reaction like you might expect. And like I think most people would react in a situation like this, a very intensely emotional situation where you have pled guilty to killing 4 people. You are about to have your entire life determined as nothing but the 4 walls of a prison forever and ever. Amen. And you've been told that's happening today. And all of these people are coming and spewing at you because what you did was so evil and so wrong. And they're telling you that, and they're telling you how you hurt them. They're telling you how they've dealt with it or how they still haven't dealt with it, and how they will never be able to deal with it, and no reaction. It is astonishing. It is utterly and completely astonishing. Now I want to take you to what the judge said. Let's add this back. We'll go to minute, I believe it's 47, and I'm going to take you into that. This was several hours long, so I have it in segments. Okay. Need to pull back just a little bit. There we go. Close.
Light that he desires in the name of Clay
We'll
has now
go.
come to end Mr. Kohberger's 15 minutes of fame. It's time that he be consigned to the ignominy and isolation of perpetual incarceration. I know there has been concern about him collaborating on books or movies or other media projects, and I truly hope that someone does not stoop to affording him this spotlight that he desires in the name of clicks, royalties, or profits. While criminal behavioralists should study him away from the spotlight in an attempt to prevent other would-be killers from acting on their worst impulses, there should be no need for that to spill over into the public eye. The great Idaho jurist Edward Lodge was known for trying to find something positive about every person he ever sentenced. And with over a half a century as a trial judge, that was a lot of people. This was often challenging, and I recall in one case he said that the best he could come up with was the defendant had good penmanship. Truth be told, I'm unable to come up with anything redeeming about Mr. Kohberger because his grotesque acts of evil have buried and hidden anything that might have been good or intrinsically human about him.
I mean, think about what was just said there. He just said the judge in his case told him that I can't even find one good thing to say about you. Not one. I've got nothing. I made a career of trying to find that one good thing I could say, and I don't have anything. This isn't even human. And still, no reaction from Bryan Kohberger.
His actions have made him the worst of the worst.
Slight head
Even in
movement.
pleading guilty, he is giving nothing hinting of remorse or redemption, nothing suggesting even a recognition or understanding, let alone regret for the pain that he has caused. And therefore, I will not attempt to speak about him further, other than to simply sentence him so that he is forever removed from civilized society. And accordingly, based upon his conduct and based upon the record before this court, recognizing the standards that govern this court's sentencing decisions as set forth in State v. Toohill, I hereby sentence Mr. Kohberger as follows. On count 1, burglary, 10 years fixed, 0 years indeterminate. I also impose a fine of $50,000. Count 2, first-degree murder of Maddie Mogen. I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 3, for first-degree murder of Kaylee Goncalves, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the victim of the family, or to the family of the victim, pardon me. On count 4, for the first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 5, for the first-degree murder of Chapin, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. The sentences on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shall run consecutively to one another. Restitution will be left open for 60 days. Defendant will be required to submit a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression to the Department of Corrections and comply with the DNA Database Act. I remand the defendant to the custody of the Idaho State Board of Corrections for to be imprisoned in an appropriate facility in execution of the sentence where he will remain until he dies.
And there you have it. The final word on Bryan Kohberger. And again, I'll give you another 10 seconds to kind of look at him.
Though you have waived your right to appeal, you do have a right to file a notice of appeal. And any such appeal must be filed within 42 days of the date of the written judgment, which will be entered
He's telling me he can't
shortly
appeal,
hereafter.
essentially. He's waived it.
Though the
You'll hear
appeal,
the
you
explanation.
should be aware, may be deemed a violation of the plea agreement. And so I certainly suggest you discuss that with counsel if that is your desire. I ask the media and public.
And we'll go ahead and stop that there, and I'll pull it out. I want to show you one more clip before we finish. I want to do Olivia's clip for Kevin, who specifically was remarking on that. So let me remove that. And okay. So you see his reaction or lack of reaction during this incredibly important time for him. The judge, if he had any hope at all that the judge was going to lower the sentence, somehow do something different than what had been agreed to, those hopes have been dashed. It is life in prison forever for him. It's a very bad future for him, nothing to look forward to. And person after person has come in and told him how there's no hope. You're evil. There's no room in heaven for you. He's been told things are going to happen to you in prison. And in all of that, he doesn't react. It's shocking. It is utterly shocking. And I think they were very wise to take this plea deal, because I think the jury would have had the same shocked feeling that I have, that he didn't have more feelings about this, more emotions, more reaction to what was happening. It is truly, no kidding, shocking that this is occurring. All of these things are happening to him, and he's not reacting more. It is really distressing, honestly, for people who have had to deal with what's been going on for several years. People who have lost their loved ones, people who have lost everything that was so beautiful about these young people. And in any event, I considered it truly shocking. The judge warned him again, don't bother to appeal. You waived that. This is forever. This is it. This is the door slamming. This is the door clanging shut. It will not change. And still completely passive. I don't know how they managed to do that. I don't care what conditions he had, it seems to me that he would more likely have reacted more. Interestingly, of course, his attorneys are required to act very passive too. I would have had a really hard time. I cried repeatedly. I'm glad I didn't go live or anything on this because I kept crying during listening to the families. It was really hard to listen to and to hear the emotion they had. And I want to add a little bit from what Olivia said. Olivia was the sister of Kaylee Goncalves. Kevin mentioned her just a minute ago. And by the way, Mildred, just Mildred, thank you so much for the super chat. And I agree with you. Okay, let's add that to the stage. Stop it here. And let me go to minute. Where do I want to be? I want to be at about 57. Okay. You see where I'm a little bit further then. 57. All right, we'll start there.
I'll leave in closing. One last thing. You
Steve
picked the wrong
Goncalves
family,
destroyed me.
and we're laughing at you on your trip to the pen. That will be today or tomorrow. I'll close with God bless all the men and women that worked on this case and all the hard work that you guys did. You guys allowed us to grieve and allowed us to get through this. The amount of work that you guys put together and the way that you guys put it together was beautiful. There was hard times to be expected, but thank you all. God bless.
Thank you.
I want to say something about that for just a minute. There had been talk in the media. Steve Goncalves, particularly shortly after the plea deal was announced, was very angry about it. He was very upset about the fact that the death penalty had been pulled off the table in exchange for the 4 consecutive life sentences plus the 10 years for burglary. So he felt like that wasn't enough, that the death penalty should have been pursued, that they definitely should have continued with this, and that it wasn't justice. And so I thought it was really important, and I really respected that at the end of his talk, he spoke directly to the prosecutors and thanked them for what they had done and acknowledged the work they had put in to make sure that Bryan Kohberger pled guilty, to make sure that he was punished for the rest of his life for this crime. And I thought it was really cool that he did that. I really like that he did that. One other thing that he did during the sentencing was, you see the podium and the door. If you look in the second top picture, you see the podium and how it's facing. It's toward, as it turns out, it's toward Bryan Kohberger. It was originally turned toward the front of the room where the prosecutors, you can see which way the prosecutors are facing. They're facing the judge. And it was turned toward the judge. And he came up there and Steve just like, turned that around. And he said, this is to you, Bryan Kohberger. And then for the next witness, someone from up in the front at, I guess, the request of the judge, came running out and moved the podium back a little bit. It wasn't enough, apparently. So before the next victim impact statement, they ran out again and turned it a little bit more. It never did completely face the front again. But Steve Goncalves wanted to make the real point that I'm addressing you, Bryan Kohberger. This is to you. And so now let's hear from Olivia. She's up next.
Your Honor, next is Stephen Goncalves, Kaylee's brother.
And just a second.
Stephen's actually going to pass. I'm going to go.
Okay. Olivia Goncalves, Kaylee's sister.
Hello, I'd like to start by thanking the court for allowing me the time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Olivia, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Goncalves, and I was blessed to love Maddie Mogen as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief, I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were 2 pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you could never be. Loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. Because the truth is, I'm angry. Every day I'm angry. I'm left shouting at the inside of my own head everything I wish I could say to you. The truth about me is when I heard the news, I didn't cry. I listened for them. I promised them I would, that I would fight for them, that I would show up no matter what it cost me. I swore I'd never let them feel alone. Because you see, I've always been their heavyweight. I've always been the one to fight the battles they didn't feel ready to fight themselves. All it ever took was a call, and they knew I would handle it for them, no matter the time, no matter the cost. They could wave their white flag because they knew I would never back down, not for them, and not even death could change that.
Her approach, clearly Olivia's, is much more oriented toward the idea that, and as her dad Steve talked about, their reaction was that not on our watch, we're finding the guy. We're going to figure out who this is. We are not going to let this go unpunished. We will make sure this happens. And that's exactly what his daughter is saying as well. Now, she's going to talk also, though, about what she wants to say here.
Somewhere along the line, I started to think about what I would say to them if I was given just one last chance. If I could gather enough heartbreak or love or sacrifice or whatever it took to get just one message across. What would I say? Throughout this entire process, I've written my feelings down at every moment, my wishes, my love, my denial, my anger. And as one final act of love, I'd planned to read these thoughts, even jarring and discombobulating and not even making sense. Because for me, that was true love.
Now, do you see, for the first time, I think you see a little bit of emotion there, maybe, almost, a little movement anyway from Kohberger.
As bare and as naked as it could be, not laced in pretty words or dressed for the occasion, but written through bleary eyes at 2 a.m. with clenched fists, angry at this reality. My true final act of love was to continue on without them, for them. That dream to read aloud my love to them, to bring meaning through pain, was the latest blow in realizing you don't deserve it. And Kaylee and Maddie don't need it. Kaylee and Maddie have always known my love, and they would never ask me to prove it by further victimizing myself to a defendant who has shown no guilt, no remorse, no apprehension. They would say to me, "Why would you give the satisfaction of showing vulnerability now? You promised you would never back down." And for that clarity, I'm thankful. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power.
So she gets even harsher as we go along. She has very harsh words for him. Watch closely to see if you see reaction from him. What do you see?
And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually
impact.
pulling out your eyebrows? Why November 13th? Did you truly think your Amazon purchase was untraceable because you used a gift card? How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022.
She's referring, of course, to the moment when he was about to be arrested, when they descended on his house. He had come back from where he had been in school out in Washington, near where the girls and Ethan were murdered in Idaho. And he was now back at his family's home. It was shortly after Christmas when the home was surrounded, when they came through into the house and they arrested Bryan Kohberger.
Which do you regret more? Returning to the crime scene 5 hours later, or never, ever going back to Moscow, not even once, after stalking them there for months? If you were really smart, do you think you'd be here right now?
See, every one of these things that she's saying has to be jogging a memory for him. I mean, of course he would remember the moment in time when all hell breaks loose and people come crashing through the door of his family home and they arrest him. Of course he would remember that. That would be a critically important memory for him. And he remembers not going back to Moscow after the murders. He remembers returning to the crime scene 5 hours later, but no reaction. It's astonishing, or very little, very, very little.
What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real? You're terrified of being ordinary, aren't you? Do you feel anything at all?
I just don't
Or are
understand.
you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. If you're so powerful, then why are you still hiding, defendant? You see, I'm here today as me. But who are you? Let's try to take off your mask and see. You didn't create devastation. You revealed it in yourself. And that darkness you carry, that emptiness, you'll sit with it long after this is over. That is your sentence. And it was written on the wall long before you ever pled guilty. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else.
And again, he really does think he's very bright. He was getting a PhD. This is something of value to him, about himself. So again, you would think some reaction.
Constantly scolding, turning your nose up to grammar mistakes, nitpicking and criticizing others. You wanted so badly to be different, to be special, to be better, to be deep, to be mysterious. You found yourself thinking you were better than everyone else, and you thought you could figure out the human psyche and see through it, all while tweaked out on heroin. Lurking in the shadows made you feel powerful because no one ever paid you any attention in the light.
So hitting all these buttons that she knows matters to him. The fact that he had a heroin addiction in his past, the fact that he had written about how he did not have attention from women. No response. Oh no, I hit that. Let's see, I know where I was. I was at 105. Give me just a second to get us back to 105.
You are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac.
Too far, and we cannot miss this. So we'll start a little earlier. So don't.
What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real? You're terrified of being ordinary, aren't you?
What a statement. That's so interesting.
Do you feel anything at all? Or are you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. If you're so powerful, then why are you still hiding, defendant? You see, I'm here today as me.
All right, we'll go a little bit further.
You or you.
There.
Let's try to take off your mask and see. You didn't create devastation. You revealed it in yourself. And that darkness you carry, that emptiness, you'll sit with it long after this is over. That is your sentence. And it was written on the wall long before you ever pled guilty. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else. Constantly scolding, turning your nose up to grammar mistakes, nitpicking and criticizing others. You wanted so badly to be different, to be special, to be better, to be deep, to be mysterious. You found yourself thinking you were better than everyone else, and you thought you could figure out the human psyche and see through it, all while tweaked out on heroin. Lurking in the shadows made you feel powerful because no one ever paid you any attention in the light. You thought you were exceptional, all because of a grade on a paper. You thought you were elite because your online IQ test from 2010 told you so. All of that effort just to seem important. It's desperate. There is a name for your condition, though. Your inflated ego just didn't allow you to see it. Wannabe. You act like no one could ever understand your mind, but the truth is you're basic. You're a textbook case of insecurity disguised as control. Your patterns are predictable. Your motives are shallow. You are not profound. You're pathetic. You aren't special or deep, not mysterious or exceptional. Don't ever get it twisted again. No one is scared of you today. No one is intimidated by you. No one is impressed by you. No one thinks that you are important.
Her comments are aimed right exactly at his view of himself, at his view of what he did. And still, you're not seeing any reaction. Still, you're not seeing him rise to that. But she is going after him, trying to get that, trying to say to him, look what you thought would be accomplished. And look how little was accomplished. All you did was wrong and evil. You didn't prove anything positive about yourself. In fact, the things you thought were positive about yourself, we can now clearly see were not. And she tells him that. She lays it out.
You orchestrated this like you thought you were God. Now look at you, begging a courtroom for scraps. You spent months preparing, and still all it took was my sister in a sheath. You work so hard to seem dangerous, but real control doesn't have to prove itself. The truth is, the scariest part about you is how painfully average you turned out to be. The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Without question, unbelievably harsh words. And you just saw no reaction from Bryan Kohberger. He never reacted. He never responded. He never gave them the satisfaction of at least communicating on a human level with them. And I know so many of the families wanted that quite clearly. They invited that in their statements, and he never did that. He made no statement of his own. And he didn't respond to their statements, just in a shockingly cold way, really. He never gave them any response where you even had a sense of where he was going emotionally. There were little things, and yes, people can pull stuff out of it. Oh, well, he moved here and there was a slight eye movement here. Those are true. I think you definitely can see those throughout here. But what you cannot see is any true emotional response that would indicate, just like she said, that he was sorry for what he had done, that there was any remorse. What the judge talked about, the fact that he had never at any time expressed that. Would it have made a difference? Obviously not in this context. There was already an agreement. The judge didn't have to follow that agreement, but it was completely clear he was going to do no less. One of the things the prosecutor said was, look, we've got 4 murders here. We told Bryan Kohberger and his team from the beginning, when they proposed that we start talking about a plea deal, we can't do anything less than a guilty for every single one of these murders. Just imagine what it would be like if Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to murdering Kaylee and Xana, but not Ethan and not Maddie. I mean, that's completely a non-starter. That absolutely cannot happen. And they made that clear, that you're going to have to plead guilty to every one of these, because every one of these was an individual person who mattered equally to the others. We can't just say this one counts and these don't. We can't do that, and we're not going to do that. And so he took their plea deal offer, which was plead guilty to everything, all 4, get 4 consecutive life sentences, and we're adding on the burglary of 10 years on top of that. But I also find it really interesting how different and how unique the family's approaches to this were. You saw they ranged from Xana Kernodle's family talking about their religious beliefs, talking about how they believed in forgiveness, how they also believe in permanent and eternal judgment from God. And then you heard Xana's family talking about their feelings and their emotions, their anger about this. And you see them trying very desperately to reach out to him. You saw more than one family member ask him questions, tell him, we want to know more. We don't get it. The problem, of course, is it will never be explained. It's not something that he even could explain if he wanted to. It doesn't make sense. It's not something that can be known. It is so incomprehensible what he did to these 4 students. Let's take some questions. I want to thank Cutley for her super chat. Thank you. If you have questions, if you could put some question marks at the beginning, I would appreciate it. We'll do some more on this. I especially am interested in Steve Goncalves' approach when he did his statement. So we'll cover that. Be sure you subscribe. And if you haven't hit the like button, please do that. That would really help the video get out to more people. So if you have a question, if you would put question marks at the beginning, that'll help me spot it in the chat. It can be a little hard as they go by. If I start reading them, then I get distracted and I don't answer any questions. So Julia is asking me, what do you think his motives were? Thank you for your thoughts on his lack of reaction. I think, I mean, what were his motives? It's so impenetrable what he did. But I think there had to have been a true hatred. They say his target initially, Maddie. I think a lot of the other things that happened just happened. I think Xana was there, and so he's like, oh, gotta get that one. And then Ethan woke up or was visible, and he said, oh, need to kill him too. And Kaylee happened to be sleeping with Maddie, and they were there in the same room. And so I think a lot of it snowballed. I don't know that he anticipated killing 4 people. I think he clearly anticipated killing 1. And there was this apparently hatred and rage towards someone he didn't even know. It isn't like he knew Maddie. She'd ever done anything to him, at least not that we know of. They were never able to figure out any connection between them, that they'd ever met, that they had any sort of relationship, good, bad, friendship, simply coming into the place where she worked, nothing. They weren't able to prove that. And so I think his motive was simply an irrational hatred of her. And perhaps it was because she was female or because she was beautiful. I don't know the reasons for that, but it is It's a good question. It's the exact question the families wanted to know. What on earth? Why? Why would you do this? Why do such a horrible, evil thing? You'd never, at least as far as anyone can tell, done anything like that before. So why? Scar Motley and me wants to know, and this is something I definitely thought about, are defendants allowed to have a sedative before sentencing? Let's all tell our loved ones several times today for the Idaho 4. Definitely do. Give your loved ones a hug and tell them you love them today, by all means. And typically, I don't think defendants are given a sedative before a hearing. Obviously, if this were the death penalty or something, there might be something like that, but this is not. This is just a hearing, a sentencing hearing. And so I think it would, in fact, be improper for him to be given any kind of sedative that would keep him from fully understanding the process and what's going on. So I don't think they would have done that. But I definitely did think, I saw some comments where I was watching, like, could he be on something? Because he was so passive, so emotionless. But remember, we were told that would happen. The defense filed motions saying we've had him tested, we think he has autism, and the jury will be shocked at how passive he looks. They're going to see that, and possibly it will be something that could be interpreted against him. So what we are witnessing is, I think, his natural reaction and what the jury would have seen. This is what the defense was so worried about. They filed those motions. Eagle Eye asks, you can tell where each family is in the grief phases, right? They very clearly handled and metabolized the grief very differently. They all processed it from very unique perspectives. Rarely do you have a chance to see completely different families coming together like this and all speaking to the same event. So typically you might have several people who are victims of a murder, but if there's just one murder, you're going to have everybody is kind of related, or they know each other, friends, that sort of thing. They have connections. These were 4 families who did not know each other. They had not met. They had never had any kind of communication. And here they are faced with the exact same problem, and they are different and they have different ways of dealing with it. Liberty Lisa, Heidi pointing out something about Bryan Kohberger having blinked more this time. There are I guarantee you, definitely people will go through it and say, well, he moved his head here. And there was one point at which, in fact, I wonder if I could get that up fast enough for you. I think I could. There was one point when I felt like he kind of smiled. Let me see if I can share that with you. All right. Nope, that's not it. What that means is I haven't removed the last thing yet. Let me remove that and add this to the stage. There we go. Do you see that motion of his mouth, one side up? That was the only almost emotional reaction I saw. We saw some times when you could see, oh, that kind of got me. There was one point at which Steve Goncalves said something and his head moved back. It was kind of like a punch. It was like a blow reaction, like, oh. And so there were some things that happened, but I think the remarkable inattention to what everybody was saying, not in the sense that he wasn't listening, but in the sense that he wasn't responding. I think that was sort of the story of the day, in my opinion. Okay, what are we, let's see. What do you think about the attorney who is smiling for much of the time? I did notice that. I think that might just be her expression and how she responds. I don't think it was like like laughing or smiling like that. I think she may just have that as that's her kind of pleasant resting face. I think this is incredibly difficult for the attorneys. I don't think it's something that you naturally would think of because everybody's focused on Bryan Kohberger and what he's doing. But for the attorneys, remember that this is an incredible loss for them as well. For 2.5 years, they have fought tooth and nail for their client. They have filed every motion. They have argued everything. They have argued past when the judge was upset. They filed it a second time if he ruled against them. They have tried and tried and tried. They have poured themselves into this. It was an important case, and they gave it all they had. And now they are suddenly being faced with the idea that Bryan Kohberger is going to be convicted. He has actually pled guilty. It isn't like he said, "Oh, well, I'll accept my sentence. I'm going to plead I'm going to plead no contest." Nothing like that. He pled guilty. He said, "Yes, that's right. I murdered all 4 of them. I did that." After they have, for months, for years, insisted that he was innocent. This is a loss in a very significant way for them. And they have to sit there with him, and they have to not react. So it is a very unnatural position that they're put in. So it is difficult. I will say that. I did notice that as well. I think that was just, how I think that was just natural and not specifically anything that was intended to be a reaction to what was being said, because it was pretty present throughout all of that. That was just my impression. Shards of Words is watching from the beginning. Thank you. And she is reminding everybody to please do hit the like button. I would appreciate that. Thank you. Kimberly says that she feels like Bryan Kohberger smiled when the judge said that we will never know why he did it. I have to go back and look at that. That's really an interesting point, because I do remember when he said we will never know why he did that. It's really interesting. Crackerjacks, a member for 11 months. That's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Mom to Field Spaniels says that it's a bittersweet wet day. It's raining where she is, and she's saying that it is bittersweet. It really is. It was so hard to watch these families who have been through so much. I was also very moved by what the roommates said, and that they were just overcome. And one of the things that had to have happened to them, one of them clearly laid out every possible symptom of PTSD without question. Everything from being afraid of noises to being unable to sleep. She clearly had all of those that were part of her life now because of what happened. And they too have been through an incredible ordeal. So we heard from the people, and we got to hear what the impact was of what Bryan Kohberger had done. It wasn't just that it was a murder. It wasn't just the loss of 4 lives. It had ramifications that went on and on for many people, for family members, for friends, for all of the people who loved and cared about them, for their sorority sisters, for people who knew them. We heard all about that today, and it was very moving for all of us, except for Bryan Kohberger, for whom it did not seem particularly moving. So thank you. I appreciate that super chat very much. Okay, headed back over, take a couple more questions. Let me see. Let me move up. Why did Kaylee's brother decide not to speak? Asked Lisa Marie. I don't know. That he appeared like he was about to go, and they said he's decided not to, so Olivia went. My guess would be this. If you've ever been afraid of public speaking, which, believe it or not, I was terrified of public speaking. I almost didn't become a lawyer because I was so scared of public speaking. I thought, I can't do it. I'll have to tell that story another time. But I was so scared of it that a situation like this would have caused utter panic. Multiply that many, many, many fold by what you're talking about in front of not just a few people in a courtroom, but the world. Lots and lots of people who tuned in today and will tune in over the next days as they watch videos on this. And what an incredible ordeal that would be to go through. So my guess is he was just overcome by what he was hearing. But I don't know that. I don't know exactly why he would have made that decision. I can just see me feeling that way. I can see feeling overcome and just feeling like I couldn't go on. So I can imagine that someone else would feel that way too. Carmina asks, have you ever seen a judge stop or cut off a victim impact statement? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. We watched a case. What case was it? Maybe somebody will remember in the chat. We watched another case where he said, we're not going to get into that. And the the victim speaking was like, okay, and moved on to something different. They clearly wanted to speak on a topic, and he said, yeah, that's not what this is about. This is about the sentencing of this person for this crime. And so let's talk about that. So I have definitely seen that. Can Bryan Kohberger be resentenced if he appeals, even unsuccessfully? I would think they would have to argue that I think it would be quickly dismissed on appeal. There's not going to be any resentencing. There's not going to be anything. He's waived his right to an appeal. Now, really the appeals would revolve around this process, like the process of how he actually was, it was explained to him what he was agreeing to. But the judge went through that in incredible detail. Bryan Kohberger agreed, yep, I understand. I know I did. I know I'm doing this. I know I'm doing that. He's bright, getting a PhD, as we said. There's not going to be any reasonable appeal. So I don't believe there will be any resentencing, anything like this. This is it. They did talk about they're going to do an additional hearing related to other matters in the future related to restitution, but that's not anything that's going to change any of what we heard today or what happened today. Okay. Eagle Eye. Oh, thank you for answering my questions. Good. And for sharing. Thank you. All right. Let's see. The brother reads it outside court. Interesting, Eagle Eye. I didn't see that. That's fascinating. I'll have to go see what he read outside court. I wonder why. Ben thinks that Kohberger is enjoying these victim impact statements and lives for this. Why did the courts allow this? And well, you heard Olivia clearly felt the same way. Olivia, Kaylee's sister, agrees with you. And she said, I'm not going to satisfy you by, and another of the victim impact statements said the same thing. I'm not going to satisfy you by telling you our precious memories. Those are to me. Those are for me. I'm going to tell you how horrible you are, is what Olivia said. And so it's possible that that's true. But you have to remember that there are, and your question, why do the courts allow this? That is such an important question, but I think there's a clear reason for that. Because it's not just for Bryan Kohberger. This isn't for his benefit. It's also for the benefit of the families. It is so important for them to be able to tell their story, their feelings, to be part of this process. They are giving up the trial. They are, to the extent that would have been a benefit to them, they are giving up the death penalty. What they are buying is their chance to speak right now in court with the assured knowledge that he will spend the rest of his life in prison. They need that. It is so important for them to be able to say, this is how I feel. This is what I lost. They're speaking to the judge. They're speaking to the prosecutors. They're speaking to the other families, and they're speaking to the world, not just to Bryan Kohberger. And that's why courts allow it, because Bryan Kohberger, this is one day, but it is so important for their healing. But Bryan Kohberger, yeah, he can go back to his cell. He can think about those things all he wants. If it gave him joy to have hurt other people, he can think about that. But there's nothing about today that was uniquely for him or that was designed just to see whether or not Bryan Kohberger himself would react to this. It was about everybody present in that courtroom. It was about the families as well as Bryan Kohberger. The aunt said that Bryan Kohberger could contact her and she would listen. I saw where he can't contact victims for 99 years. I don't know how they actually worded the group he can't contact. She might be in that group. Maybe there would have to be some kind of special allowance for that, or maybe he just can't do it. Maybe that's just not something that could happen. Eminem, I wondered also where his parents were. I don't believe they were present. I'm sure they were watching just as, you know, many around the world were watching. I'm sure they watched it as well. I think it would have been nearly impossible for them to be there. I just can't even begin to imagine. All right. Well, we will, I think this will be our live stream for today. So we won't go live again tonight, but we will be live again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Look for more videos I'm going to be dropping over the next days related to Kohberger and his sentencing. And I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks to our mods, Marlon and Mama Pinks. There we go.